All right, guys. Charles here. Let's do AP Macro 2024. This is set 1, and this is number 2 for set 1. This is, as we can see, a GDP, CPI kind of question. So that would be the category I'd put these in, GDP and CPI. Unit 2. This is your Unit 2 section. The table provides shows economic data for the country of Luland. The base year is year 1, and the GDP deflator in year 2 is 115. I always do this like a child. I'm going to do year 1, which is our base year. They told us that. I'm going to look at what nominal is, what real is, and then I'm going to put CPI category here. So recognize that they gave us a deflator, but technically for mathematical purposes, your deflator, your CPI, these are treated the same ways. They can use the word price index. Both of these are a price index. They're just measures of inflation. That's what a price index is. It measures those costs or those prices of goods in society. The difference between these two is the deflator is what we call all goods and services. It's much broader than the CPI, right? Whereas this CPI is just consumer goods. Lots of times it's talked about as a specific group of goods, specifically consumer. It's talked about as a particular group of goods, particularly consumer, and it is talked about as a market basket of goods. And those basket of goods are obviously consumer goods, right? This is the consumer price index. So there have been multiple choice questions on past exams on this. I haven't seen one about the deflator, but I don't have those actual tests, or most of them. We tend to get just practice tests that we can use. There's a few tests out that we've had from past. I think the last one was 2012. That was actually released, and I've never seen a question on a deflator, but you should know what it is. Anyway, all three of those words mean the same thing. If we were looking at a cheat sheet here for our CPI, there's formulas you need to know to find nominal GDP. There's formulas that you need to know to be able to find the real GDP. You need to know that real is adjusted for price level changes using a price index. Obviously, the nominal is unadjusted. It is just price times quantity. That's all your nominal GDP is. There's CPI definitions, deflator, calculation, things that you need to know. You need to know the words inflation, disinflation, deflation. Just have a good definition in your head of those. You need a rate of change formula. Don't worry so much. This is all multiple choice question substitution. But let's go back to our question here. So calculate the real GDP in Luland in year 2. Let's see if we can make sense of this. We had started this and then I ran away doing some other stuff here. Cool. Nominal. They give us year 1's nominal is 800,000. Recognize that in the base year, year 1, real and nominal are always the same. So we know what our real is, even though they didn't give it to us. We know what it is because in the base year, nominal and real are always the same. You could say that and write that down. It's always true. The CPI is always going to be 100 in the base year, and it is because our understanding is that our formula is nominal divided by real times 100 is our CPI, or our consumer price, or a deflator, price index, whatever. Again, when I say CPI, all of these for mathematical purposes are the same thing. So nominal and real times 100. 800 over 800 is 1 times 100 gives us 100. Easy enough. Year 2, we can see our nominal is 1,035,000. We're looking for real. That's what we're trying to find. And they give us our CPI of 115. All right, so if we can use that formula for CPI, we can just flip this around. Nominal over CPI times 100 would give us real. The College Board has no formula sheet, so you have to know these in your head. It's important to be able to do what you need to do. Cool. All right, let's just plug in some numbers here. We got 1035 over 115. Let's use our calculator here, because I'm not a math guy. 1035, 123 divided by 115. 9,000. So that's 9,000, but then we got to do it times our 100, which would give us 900,000. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Just mathematical, from a mathematical numbers perspective, we know there's been some inflation, so they know that real, remember our formula is also nominal minus inflation equals real. To get real wages, real GDP, real interest rates, we have to subtract out inflation from those nominal numbers, right? So to get any real numbers, and there's going to be a number of questions on the AP about how do you find real, what's nominal? We obviously have to just know this stuff. So mathematically, this makes sense. If we know there's been inflation, and we see there has, we went from a CPI of 100 to 115, we know there's been a 15% increase in inflation. Therefore, real would be less than nominal. Easy enough. All right. So the 900,000 was what we were found. Check, we've got it. We showed our work. We calculated the real GDP. We're golden. Let's see if we can move down and do B. How would the change in real GDP from year 1 and year 2 affect the demand for money and the nominal interest rate? Now, okay, let's talk about this for just a second. First of all, anytime I'm talking about demand for money, we're talking about a money market graph. We should know how to draw it. They don't ask us to draw it here, but it's important that we see it and make this connection. We've got nominal interest rates on the vertical. This is money supply. This is demand for money, or money demand, however you want to write it. This is nominal interest rates, and then quantity of money on the horizontal axis. So let's just do QM1 right there. We know real GDP is going to increase. If real GDP goes up, we know that that's also going to drive up the price level. If real GDP goes up, price level goes up. If price level goes up, demand for money goes up. Demand price level is one of the shifters of your demand for money. So when price levels go up, the understanding here is that people need more money to buy goods and services. Their demand for money increases, and that's going to drive up the nominal interest rate. So this was, I'd never seen this sort of scenario shown on an AP exam until I think it was 2021. I use it all the time now. And anytime I'm talking about demand for money, price levels, I'm going to make that connection of how to draw this graph and make sure we can explain it. Again, they don't ask you to do it. You just need to know that when real GDP goes up, price level goes up, demand for money goes up, and that drives up nominal interest rates. Easy enough. And of course, this is our causal chain of thinking, but you would not write that for your answer. You would just simply write it out as real GDP increases from year 1 to year 2. It's going to drive up the price level. As price level's going up, people need more money on hand to pay for goods and services. Therefore, demand for money increases. When for demand for money increases or shifts to the right, it will drive up nominal interest rates. Easy enough. Nobody is going to take any points away from you drawing the graph. Actually, they would probably enjoy it that you did it. All right, number C, did the standard of living of the average citizen in Luland increase, decrease, or remain the same? Check, check. From year 1 to year 2, explain using numbers. Standard of living, we're thinking about real GDP per capita. That is our gold standard of living, real GDP per capita. So if we look back up here, we see we have 800,000 was our real. Remember that in the base year, nominal and real are always the same thing. So we know our real GDP for year 1 was 800,000. Our real GDP for year 2 was 900,000. So we have real GDPs. We're looking for per capita, which means per person. So we're looking to use population numbers. We've got 1,000 here. We've got 1,200 here. When we divide, let's use our calculator again and see if we can make sense of it. 800, 800,000, there we go. Divided by 1,000 should give us 8,000, or sorry, 800. And then, I told you I wasn't good at math. And then the 900 over this calculator moves a little faster than I like to 750. So per capita, per person, real GDP per capita has decreased by that 50 number. So we would explain that this is 800. Would we say 800 per? How could I say that? I want to say it correctly so I've got it in my head right. $800 per person. Real GDP per capita was $800 per person. And then in year 2, real GDP per capita was 750. We lost a $50, real GDP of $50 per person from year 1 to year 2. Using the numbers, once they see you've calculated this and you write this out in a way that they can understand you and they're seeing it, obviously you've got this in front of where you're writing, they're going to know exactly what you're saying and how you're saying it. I think we're fine there, saying it just like that. Cool. Let's keep going. What was the numerical value of the inflation rate from year 1 to year 2? No, we've already kind of done this. We sort of looked up here and saw that we went from 100 to 115. That's a 15% increase. This is one of those scenarios where you need what we call a rate of change formula in your head. There's all kinds of different ways to use this, say this. I just use new minus old. Over divided by old times 100. And that would give me my answer, right? So I could plug in numbers. I know, and CPI is inflation, right? So CPI or deflator are measures of inflation. So we know that our new was 115. We know that our old was 100. We divide that by the old, and we're going to multiply that by 100. It's going to give us 15%, right? Again, if you're going, this is pretty easy. If you're going from 100 to 115, we know it was a change in 15%. If you go from 100 to 120, we know it was a change of 20%. You go from 100 to 150, you know it was a change of 50%. But, and these are easy, you don't even have to really do the math. They're not even asking for the math because they know you can do it in your head. But if they had given us, we started at a CPI of 120 and we went to 125, that is not 5%. So let's just make sure we understand that. This is where I would have to use a calculator, and you do have a calculator on your exam, and make sure you use the formula, right? So new over old divided by old times 100. There's a bunch of these. Just find one that you like and use it over and over again. Cool. All right, let's do E. If nominal wages increase by 10% from year 1 to year 2, what happens to real wages? This goes back to that understanding of nominal minus inflation equals real. Now, this formula is stupid helpful only because you could have said nominal GDP, you could have said nominal wages, you could have said nominal income, you could have said nominal interest rates. All of those work. Minus inflation would give you real GDP, would give you real wages, would give you real. Now, obviously they have to be percentages here, so that's what's important, right? Is that we understand that we're talking about percentages across the board, same measurement. So nominal wages went up by 10%. Everybody got a raise of 10%. That's what your nominal wages is, what you get paid. So everybody got a raise of 10%, but inflation went up by 15%. In essence, your real wage went down by 5%. So you can buy 5% less stuff due to inflation. And this should make sense to us by this stage of the game. All right, let's see. Have we forgotten anything? I think we answered all of this. All right, guys, be safe and take care. See you soon.